Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone online for joining us. My name is Nina Touche. I'm a journalist. I'm also living with type 1 diabetes, and I'm the founder of Glucose Toujours, a news website for people with diabetes. Today, I will be talking about my experience using an open source algorithm for the management of my type 1 diabetes. And I thank from the bottom of my pancreas Zach and Samantha and the committee for having me today at SAIL. First slide, please. Whoop. That's the title. So let me tell you first about where I come from. I come from another planet, the diabetes planet, and I'm gonna tell you more about this planet. The diabetes planet has around 537 million of adults today. Among them, 8.7 million live with type 1 diabetes, and I am one of them. Yes, today we can live well with diabetes if we have access to insulin, to the right treatment, to diabetes education and information. But let's not forget that diabetes is still a killer today. In 2021, it killed almost 6.7 million people. It is as much as COVID-19 since the beginning of the pandemic. So what are we waiting for to make of diabetes a priority in politics? On our planet, we also have different kind of technologies, and I'm gonna introduce you some of them. We have glucometers and continuous glucose monitoring systems, CGMs. We have insulin pumps. I personally use a CGM, that is a small patch, a small sensor that you put here, and it measures my blood sugar every 5 minutes, so I don't need to prick my finger and measure my blood like this. I also use an insulin pump, and it's here. My insulin pump administers insulin in a continuously fashion, so I don't need to inject myself with an insulin pen, for example. Very recently, industries developed a new algorithm able to connect a CGM to an insulin pump, and we call them hybrid closed-loop systems. So to put it simply, an algorithm collects the data from the CGM, the blood sugar, and it transfers it to the insulin pump that increases or decreases the amount of insulin according to the blood sugar value. That's what we call hybrid closed-loop systems. And today, I will be talking about a very specific type of closed-loop system, and I will be talking about the community of people, the do-it-yourself community. Let me reassure you, the do-it-yourself community is not a community of people who is trying to learn to bake their own bread at home. No, it's a community of people with diabetes and of caregivers who a decade ago created an open source algorithm able to connect most CGMs with most insulin pumps. And that's revolutionary. So this community of people, they were tired to wait for the industry to come up with an algorithm able to connect these two devices. And so they built an algorithm and they put it online for free, and it's open access. It's in open access, so everyone willing to have a closed loop system can have it nowadays. There are two major algorithms in open source. It depends on whether you're using an Android or an iOS phone. I personally use an iPhone, so I always have to have it with me. And now I will be talking about my personal experience using Loop. So I've been living with type 1 diabetes for 10 years. And 2 years ago, I was sick of my treatment. I wanted something better for my diabetes. So I wanted a closed loop system, but it was not yet available in France. I have heard about the do-it-yourself community and the open source algorithm on social media, but my first reaction when I heard about it was to think that I was not able to build this algorithm, that I was not geek enough to install it. but I was so wrong. So I learned everything I could online and on social media. And I would like here to open a parenthesis to stress the importance of social media for people with diabetes. Social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, are a great source of information and of education for people with diabetes. It is maybe hard to hear that, but I learned more from social media on diabetes than from my endocrinologist. Um, so what I try to do as a person living with type 1 diabetes, I try to convince healthcare professionals to go online and to have a look at all the amazing and empowering projects available, because there are so many things happening online. And I think that as a healthcare professional, you should prescribe social media to your patient. It's very good for your mental health. Um, So I wanted to have this closed loop system. I went online, I'm closing the parentheses. I went online and I read everything I could read. I watched a lot of videos about it. I asked questions on Facebook groups as well. So it's something that you have to do by yourself. You have to be, so you're pretty alone in the building process, but you are supported by a community of people online. Um, Thankfully, we have websites that tell you how to build this app, because the app is not available in the App Store. You have to build it on your phone. So maybe for you it's easy because you're engineers and stuff. But for me, like if it's not in the App Store, I'm lost. So, um, but there is these websites, for example, this one, it tells you step by step how to install the app, and it tells you everything you need to know. It's a very good source of information, and it answers any question you may have, and it really um, presents every scenario that may present to yourself. So this is a website. I'm very thankful for the do-it-yourself community for building this website, because it's a great resource. So when I had all the information I needed, I went to my doctor and I talked about my desire of building this app for my diabetes. And I'm lucky enough to have a supportive endocrinologist nowadays, and she, even if she's not authorized to recommend it, to prescribe it, because it's not legal. She supported my decision because she knew other patients who would do that the same thing that I wanted to do. So she was very supportive, and it's not always the case within the healthcare system. And I thank her for letting me choose my own treatment for my diabetes. So once I had the green light from my doctor, and even if I had a red light, I would have done it anyway. Uh, when I had the green light, I decided to install the app, and it took me, to be honest, around 3 hours to install the app on my phone. But from the first day I heard about the algorithm and the day I had the app on my phone, it took approximately 1 month to read everything, to really understand what I was doing. And I always recommend people to take the time and to read and read and read, because there is a lot of information, and there is a lot of things yeah, to understand. So here is the design of the app I'm using. So it's the Loop design, the Loop app, sorry. So you can see this beautiful high blood sugar that proves you that I still have diabetes, even if I'm using a closed loop system. So it's sexy, it's bright, everything you need when you have diabetes. Visually, it's important to have something that is attractive when you're handling a product, I think. Um, and the thing is that it works very well. I've been using it for 2 years, and it works very well. And is it safe? The last 2 years, I never had any adverse events. I never had any technical issue. It is safe. But apparently, when people with diabetes say it's safe, society don't they don't listen to us. They prefer when it comes from scientists. So here there is a selection of papers that I read and that I like, but there's so many more. There's so many more studies on do-it-yourself or open source algorithms. Um, So it is safe, like research has proven it now. It's safe, and sometimes it works even better than commercial closed-loop systems. Um, so what challenges did I face when I wanted to install my app? So the first one is that it's not for everyone, even if it's an open access. You have to have some prerequisites. The first one is you have to be comfortable with technology in general. You have to have access to diabetes technology, and that's not yet the case yet. All over the world. You have to be autonomous, and speaking English is better. Even if you've seen the app is in French, the website is in English. You could translate it on Google, but sometimes I think it's better to speak English if you really want to grasp and understand everything. Um, the second challenge, and that's the most challenging challenge, is the relationship with healthcare professionals. I told you that I have a good relationship with my doctor, but it's not the case with all doctors, and it's not the case of all people with diabetes. Since it's not a legal system, it means that it's not approved by the FDA or equivalent authorities. Um, so people still tend to hide that they're using this kind of system because they're afraid that the doctor will report them. They're afraid not to have access to the devices anymore. So it's often complicated to talk openly about this with doctors since it's not legal, even if it works, and that there is papers and that there is an international consensus that says that healthcare professionals should support people using these kind of systems. Um, and third challenge is that I always have to be aware of updates. I'm managing my algorithm, like I need to be aware if there is a new update. I need to be ready to update the app. I did it like 1 week ago and I didn't want to do it, but I had to do it. I need to be able to handle any technical problem. So that's a challenge because you are in charge of your treatment. It's something very good, it's something powerful, but it can be also something lonely. But thanks God, and I will never thank them enough, there is the diabetes online community and Facebook groups and WhatsApp groups that is always available to answer your questions and help you um, solve a problem. Um, Here is my wish list. Um, so I wish healthcare professionals knew more about do-it-yourself artificial pancreas systems. I think it's their duty to know all the treatments available, even if they are not commercial, reimbursed, or legal. And I wish that health authorities and organizations recognize its benefit instead of condemning it, like France did a few years ago. And I'm still waiting for an update from them. What are the limits of closed-loop systems? And I will speak about the limits of commercial and do-it-yourself closed-loop systems. So first, they are not accessible to everyone, because to have access to a closed loop system, you need to have access to diabetes technology. And that's not the case all over the world. We have a lot of work to do to ensure universal access to insulin pumps, glucometers, CGMs, and other, and let's not talk about insulin. So we have a lot of work to do. The second, it's also a question of, do I want to use a closed loop system? There is a very interesting figure from 2019 that says that 64% of people with type 1 diabetes in France didn't use an insulin pump. It means that this technology is only for a minority of people. The 40% less of people who's not using a pump is probably using insulin injections with pens. So what do we give them? What do we provide them? What kind of technology can we give them so they can have something as good as a closed loop system? That's my question. There are some technologies that are being thought, and some kind of closed loop systems that connects like CGMs with insulin pens. But it's still not in the market in France, or it's still not reimbursed, or it's too slow for me. And last but not least, and I would say it's one of the most important point for me, well, it's true that my closed loop system really changed my life. It revolutionized my diabetes management. I have better results. My blood sugar is stable most of the time. My HbA1c decreased. I have a better quality of sleep. I don't wake up at night, for example, because I have a high or a low blood sugar, because there is rarely a high or low blood sugar. So my quality of life also is better, and I have less low blood sugar. So it really changed my life. But I still have diabetes at the end of the day. So closed loop systems don't make diabetes disappear. It's still here, and it's still here. So for me, closed loop systems are not a cure to type 1 diabetes. And what I want is a cure to type 1 diabetes. And so I'm wondering, how can algorithms, technology, and AI help us find that cure? I can't wait to see the end of the diabetes saga, don't you? Um, so before finishing my talk, I would like to invite you all to visit our website, Glucose Toujours, a news website for people with diabetes. We are a team of journalists, and we talk about research, literature, cinema, politics, and it's a very inspiring project, and very bold and funny also initiative. So if you can support us, if you can share it with friends. It's in French, but the English version will come soon, and it's time for you to practice French, I think, no? Uh, so visit us, support us, and I thank you very much for listening to me. I'm here if you have any questions. Merci beaucoup.
Can we ask questions?
Oui.
All right, great. So,
Ah.
yes, hi, I'm Zach Kohane, endocrinologist. So, have you actually had the discussions with a doctor about your pump, and how did that go?
So I went to my doctor, and I told her that I wanted to install this kind of loop, and I'm lucky because she knew about it. She was not like a specialist, but she had already patients who used this system, and she actually made me put me in contact with a patient who used it, because she could not actually tell me how to do it, etc. So it went very well. I am lucky, but it's not the case for everybody. People are still hiding because the doctor doesn't know or don't want to know. So what I say is that maybe you should change doctor, but you also should do it anyway, because it's proven that it's good and that it's safe, and you have to do what is best for your health.
Does French National Health Insurance pay for the CGM and the pump?
They do,
That's good.
yeah.
Anybody else have it? Yes, please.
Hi.
Hi, great talk. Marco Perez from Stanford. So, I found your talk fascinating. Just a comment and a question. So, we see people using wearable devices all the time off quote unquote label. You made a comment about how it's not legal. I take a little bit of issue with that because, it's not that it's illegal to do it. It's just that it's not regulated, which I think there's a distinction there. My question is around the regulation. So when you have a product that's, produced by a company, they will take it to the FDA, and the FDA will have them do all of the safety studies and get the regulation necessary. But in this sort of ground up, consumer-based driven technology, without a financial proponent, nobody's going to take this to the FDA for approval or regulation. So can you think of ways, or are there ways where the community itself auto-regulates? Is there sort of some kind of organization or some kind of community that is overseeing the safety, overseeing some of the studies and the quality of these studies for the safety, because safety is one of the biggest concerns in this situation. Thanks.
Thank you for your question. So there are several resources that can answer your question. The first one is that is an international consensus that was published in the Lancet, if I'm not wrong, last year or not the year before. And it's a consensus signed by 40 healthcare professionals around the world, by 4 jurists, and by international organizations of healthcare professionals and of people with diabetes. And it's a how-to guide for healthcare professionals and how to um, follow a patient that is willing to use this kind of technology. So that's one of the first resources available. Second, I think that it's important for diabetes organizations to to have a position and to support these initiatives and these people, because otherwise we're alone, and we need to be supported because it's proven that it's safe and that it works. So for example, Diabetes Australia or Diabetes UK, they have position papers where they say that is it safe and that we should support it, and if as a healthcare professional you don't want to support it, you have to um, bring your suggest another healthcare professional to your patient. So healthcare national organizations and these international consensus are kind of guidelines that are important for us. I hope I answered the question.
Hi, I'm very short. I've come to realize again. Nina, thank you. That was, I find this, I'm Shao from University of Birmingham, UK. I find your talk and the movement in general very inspiring. I wondered whether in your online communities and the people that you speak to, you also come across parents who are doing this on behalf of their children. And I wondered, how they manage things like the interaction with the healthcare professional, how they manage the technical difficulties.
So that's something very interesting. And so among the community, there are parents and wives and husbands that install the app for their spouse or their child. And I find that fascinating. I don't know how they communicate with the healthcare professional. I think it's either it works very well and they are supported, or they hide it. I don't know. I could ask them, but you can find a lot of answers in Facebook groups, and you can see parents entering the group and asking, "Hi, I'm a mom of a type 1D child, and I'm willing to install the app. How do I do, etc." And it's very powerful because within minutes you have people that are willing to help and give you answers, and it's a amazing how do you say service après-vente? I don't know, customer service. Yes, voila. Facebook groups are very great customer services.
Nicholas Tatnetti, Cedars-Sinai. Thank you, Nina, for a really inspiring talk, inspiring in how technology can really change lives. And so I have a friend who is a type 1 diabetic, and whenever we're hanging out with her, it was kind of a constant back and forth between, what she's eating, and she has a CGM and a pump and an insulin pump. And so I was kind of curious a little bit more detail, like how closely do you have to watch your diet, and do you ever have to do interventions, or is that really all happening automatically? It's kind of like really amazing to see how effective it seems to be.
Mm-hmm. So we call the system hybrid closed-loop systems because they are not fully closed-loop systems yet. It means that when you eat carbs, the app doesn't know that you are eating carbs, not yet, because it's being developed. So I have to tell the app that I'm gonna eat, so I still have to count the amount of carbs that I'm gonna eat, and everybody was eating with me. I'm sure you didn't see that I was counting and doing my on my phone, but I'm doing it constantly. So that's a huge mental burden. And that's why I say that it doesn't make diabetes disappear, because even if it's even if it's automated, I still have my diabetes here. I still have to check my blood sugar because the app sometimes doesn't work for, I don't know, reason, technical or the weather, the stress, etc. Sometimes it just can't work. So my diabetes is still here in my mind, and that's why it's not a cure to diabetes, and it doesn't make it disappear. And so for me, fully automated closed loop system could help reduce this mental burden and this diabetes distress. And but I don't think that technology is the final answer to type 1 diabetes.
Thank you.
Hello, Firas Wabi, Northwestern Medicine. How do you trust the components and the compounds that are in these devices, since they're not regulated? And are you concerned about them doing what the manufacturers said they do, since they're open, because of the way they were manufactured? And how does that factor in your communities? How do you deal with that concern, if it is there?
So there is no manufacturer behind. It's just like someone who coded and put it online. But it's a community work. So I don't know personally the person who built the app. I trust it because I heard people saying that it was that it worked. I saw how it worked. I see how successful it was. I have friends who had it before me. So I mean, why should I trust? Why shouldn't I trust an open source algorithm? That's a difficult formulation. Why shouldn't I trust the open source algorithm less than the commercial closed closed source algorithm? For me, when it's open source, it means that everybody can have access to the code, and if it was wrong or dangerous, I think people would have noticed it, because last point, it is made by people with diabetes for people with diabetes. Why would you want to harm them? Or like if it's often it's like a dad who builds the code for the child, so why would he do something wrong? Like he won't do something wrong.
Hi, Bill LaCava, Boston Children's Hospital. Have you observed any reaction from companies who might want to try to monetize this algorithm, or like has there been a reaction in the kind of medical industry or the software industry to the success of this tool?
Sorry. Oh, no. That's a good question. It's not, I wouldn't say it's something like they say publicly. Well, I hope and I think they're well aware that we are using their insulin pump and their CGM to do something different. But what can they do? We have the power. We have the like when you want to do something, you do it. So I know that some companies are inspired by the open source algorithms because it's open source. Everyone can use it and do it their own way. That's what I know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one thing that can happen is if, depending on the license, they might make small changes to the code, closed source it, wrap it in an app, put it in the app store, try to sell it, try to get it maybe regulated in some way. But I'm curious if that's happened.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I wanted to say something, but I forgot it. But no, I don't think it happened. If there is questions online. Merci, thank you.